The truth is out about Pete, but how will Reese react to torrid home and aways in half an hour? First up, time to catch up. 5 style.
Tonight on 5 News, the child porn sweep. Plus, the Queen recovers in hospital. Ryson, 4 in court, 6 more arrested. And get the look, how to dress like Tony Blair. Good evening. Police are expected to reveal more details of the people they suspect of paying to see child pornography on the net. In August 2001, the FBI busted a child porn website that numbered 250,000 subscribers from around the world. Thousands of them lived here in the UK. Well, today the FBI confirmed that British police are leading the way in the international operation to bring those subscribers to justice. And this afternoon, police arrived at the home of Who guitarist Pete Townsend, who's admitted being one of the people who paid to see kids being abused. 5's Keith Doyle has the story.
This was the very public moment that the police entered Pete Townsend's London home at 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Hello, it's DS Coles. Thank you.
The Who guitarist is amongst nearly 7,000 people that the police are investigating for accessing child pornography on the internet. Earlier, Townsend's friend told the waiting media that Townsend denied he was a paedophile and said officers had been invited to the house by mutual agreement.
I just want to tell you that we are meeting the police at the house here at 3 o'clock by appointment, by arranging with the police.
A short time later, more officers arrived with evidence bags. Pete Townsend said he was happy for them to take his computer away. He admitted using a credit card to enter an internet site, but he said it was for research into child porn, something he says he has long campaigned against.
Saying you're carrying out research is no defence. Even compiling this report, if I was to surf the internet and find child internet porn, I would be breaking the law and could go to jail.
Leave it to the professionals. It's fine to lobby, it's fine to do all that you can in your power to stop paedophilia, but don't look. If you do, you'll go to jail.
The crackdown follows Operation Avalanche in the US, which uncovered a network of 250,000 people accessing sites from 60 countries around the world. Over 6,500 were in Britain. Here, as Operation OR, the agencies deciphered the raw computer information handed over by the US, transforming it into credit card details, transactions and names. They were prioritised, so people who have direct access to children were investigated first. So far, 1,300 arrests have been made.
Even the people who deliberately go looking for child pornography, many of those will not go on to hands-on sexually abuse, but they need to know that by paying for the material, they are supporting an industry which is about the abuse of children.
With such high-profile people implicated and 50 police officers arrested, the police believe they're sending out a tough message on child internet porn. Keith Doyle, 5 News.
So just how wide is the problem with child porn surfers on the web, and who's trying to stamp it out? Well, here are 5 facts. Surfers who come across child porn websites can report them to the Internet Watch Foundation, www.iwf.org.uk, which tells the internet service providers who then take them down. Nearly 18,000 people complained to the IWF about child porn sites last year. The problem's growing all the time. The number was up 2/3 on the year before. But not everything ugly on the internet is against the law. Of those 18,000 complaints the IWF investigated, only 1/5 were potentially illegal. The US is still the world's biggest provider of sick material. Just 3% of offending sites were traced back to the UK. It's almost impossible to put a figure on what the business is worth, but the American couple jailed for running the site Pete Townsend paid to see were making £1 million a month from children's misery. And on 5 News tonight at 7:30, we'll be asking, are we tough enough on people who view child porn on the internet? You can text us with your thoughts on 800-88. Please text the word 5 and then the rest of your message, or you could leave a voicemail. 09002 555 555 is the number for that, or of course you could email us. Please remember to give your name and where you're contacting us from. Iraq has weapons of mass destruction and weapons inspectors will find them, the Prime Minister insisted today. Mr. Blair was holding a monthly press briefing in the midst of claims that his government is split down the middle on action against Iraq. But split or no split, the man who answers the phone when the White House calls was in uncompromising mood. In the press gang was Five's political editor Andy Bell. He is at Downing Street for us now. Andy, do you think the Prime Minister's performance has united his party behind him, or indeed is he beyond needing to do that now?
Well, I think his party, his cabinet are very worried, and what they wanted to know this afternoon was what happens if the United States decide they've had enough of the inspections, they want to go to war with Iraq, but the United Nations aren't yet ready to make that decision. In that case, what would Tony Blair do? And this is what he had to say to that this afternoon.
Our preference is, of course, to go back, have the discussion in the UN Security Council and have a fresh resolution. The only qualification we've added, which is a qualification we've added throughout, and you will see that I've added this throughout, is if you did have a breach, went back to the UN, but someone put an unreasonable or unilateral block down on action. Now, in those circumstances, we've said, you know, we can't be in a position where we are confined in that way.
Which means there could be war without a new explicit UN decision. That would be fine inside the cabinet with the team of hawks, led by Tony Blair and Defence Secretary Geoff Hoon. Much less happy will be the doves, led by International Development Secretary Claire Short, and more quietly by the Leader of the House of Commons, Robin Cook. Other cabinet members are somewhere in the middle, including Chancellor Gordon Brown, who's been keeping pretty quiet over this one. But whatever the misgivings in the cabinet, today the Prime Minister was passionately arguing that Saddam Hussein had to be disarmed.
My fear is that we wake up one day and we find either that one of these dictatorial states has used weapons of mass destruction, and Iraq has done so in the past, and we get sucked into a conflict with all the devastation that would cause, or alternatively, these weapons, which are being traded right round the world at the moment, fall into hands of these terrorist groups, these fanatics who will stop at absolutely nothing to cause death and destruction on a mass scale.
Okay, Andy, so you were there. Do you get the impression that Mr. Blair is still preparing us for war?
Yes, I do. I think Tony Blair believes that Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction, that he's lying about it, but that eventually the UN inspectors will identify a clear breach. And at that point, from Tony Blair's point of view, it would be nice if the United Nations were prepared to stick to its obligations and follow through, and if necessary, disarm Saddam Hussein by force. But if the United Nations are not prepared to do it, then the United States are prepared to do it, and I think almost certainly in that case, the UK would be there alongside them.
Thanks, Andy. Police investigating the discovery of the deadly poison ricin in a London flat have made 6 further arrests. 5 men and a woman are now being questioned at a police station in Dorset. Earlier this morning, 4 men accused of plotting to use the substance appeared in a London court for the first time. Joanna Longworth has the latest.
After speculation about the anti-terrorist squad making more arrests, came confirmation.
5 men and 1 woman were arrested in connection with this inquiry. No chemical materials were found in connection with the arrests, which were conducted under the Terrorism Act 2000. We're not prepared to comment further at this stage, except to say that 6 people are in custody at Bournemouth.
And today, arriving for their first court appearance in an armoured police van amid tight security at Bow Street Magistrates, the men arrested after police discovered traces of the lethal poison ricin in this London flat.
The 4 men, all fairly scruffily dressed, spoke only to confirm their addresses. One of them is as young as 17 years old. Their charges under the Terrorism and the Chemical Weapons Act were read out to them, and they've now been remanded in custody.
One of the 4, Mustafa Taleb, who's 33, has a separate charge of planning to carry out a terrorist act on or before September the 26th last year. And a 5th man, also arrested with the group, appeared in court today, accused of having a fake French passport. Police have not confirmed the arrests in Bournemouth are directly linked to the discovery of ricin in Wood Green. Anti-terrorist officers are now questioning the 6 being held in Dorset. Joanna Longworth, 5 News.
And some more stories making the headlines then. And police have released the last known pictures of the missing 21-year-old Rachel Moran. The CCTV images show her walking past a grocery shop in Hull in the early hours of New Year's Day. She vanished somewhere between her parents' home and the flat she shared with her boyfriend. Divers have searched rivers and drains after her handbag was discovered yesterday. David Yelland has resigned as editor of The Sun after 4 years in charge of Britain's best-selling daily newspaper. He's being replaced by News of the World editor Rebecca Wade, who's married to former EastEnders actor Ross Kemp. The battle to buy the supermarket firm Safeway has broken out into a bidding war. Sainsbury's has pitched in today with a £3.2 billion offer, which is £300 million more than the amount on offer from northern food chain Morrisons. The Queen is recovering in hospital tonight after undergoing a knee operation. Today's 45-minute procedure is said to have gone well, and she's expected to be fully active again in just a few weeks' time. Well, Charlotte Hume is at the King Edward VII Hospital in London for us tonight. Charlotte, how did the Queen wind up in hospital?
Well, it all started the Friday before Christmas when the Queen made a private visit to the races at Newmarket, and she apparently tripped on some uneven ground and twisted her knee, and it damaged her cartilage. Now, many of us saw her at Sandringham at Christmas when she made the annual visit to St Mary Magdalene Church, which the royal family does on Christmas Day, and she seemed to be walking quite tentatively, hobbling a little, and this was the first indication to the public that she did have this knee problem.
So she's in hospital. When was she admitted?
She was admitted late last night, and this morning she was given a general anaesthetic, and quite early in the morning she underwent this operation known as an arthroscopy, which is a keyhole operation, and it lasted 45 minutes, and they removed a section of the torn cartilage that had been damaged, and apparently it went very, very well. It was carried out by the Royal Orthopaedic Surgeon, who's called Roger Vickers, and she's recovering in a room behind me right now.
Sounds painful. How common is this type of operation?
Well, apparently 5,000 of these operations are carried out every year in Britain. Now, the majority of those are obviously for people waiting on the NHS. Now, if you are going on the NHS, unlike the Queen, then this would take you 6 to 8 months, possibly longer, depending on your hospital in your area, to receive the operation. And if you are able to go privately, then it costs between £3,000 and £4,000, again, depending on which hospital you have it done at. We understand the Queen's going to be taken from hospital tomorrow if she's well enough, and she'll be driven to Sandringham, where she's going to be able to rest for 2 weeks. She should be feeling better, we're told, between 6 to 8 weeks from now.
Thanks, Charlotte. I'm going to take a break in just a moment, but do stay with us, because coming up, the man on the left is making a fashion statement, but what is it? We'll be finding out. And England's cricketers are down and out against a new opponent, Sri Lanka. All that, plus the weather where you are. It's your news from 5 News, and it's all coming up after the break. Hello again, this is 5 News, 5:46 right now. Detectives investigating the fatal stabbing of Robert Doon in Middlesbrough have arrested 3 teenagers, police said tonight. Mr. Doon was stabbed to death on a busy street over the weekend. Well, 5's Ben Scotchbrook is outside Middlesbrough Police Headquarters. Ben, what more can you tell us about these arrests?
Well, I can tell you a little more about those 3 youths who are being held at the police station behind me. The first of them, a 19-year-old, arrived at 2:30 this afternoon with a solicitor to give himself up. And then at 4 o'clock, 2 other youths, again with a solicitor, one of them 17 and another just 14-year-old, arrived. Now, they've all been arrested, and they're all being questioned in connection with the death of a 31-year-old father who was stabbed to death in the street. Police have been searching the back streets of Middlesbrough today, searching for some sort of knife, a sword even, a weapon that was used on Saturday to kill a man in broad daylight. 31-year-old Robert Dunn worked as a scaffolder. He was well known and well loved and had a 9-month-old son, Liam. Eyewitnesses have told police that at 2:45 on Saturday afternoon, Mr. Dunn was talking to a group of young people outside this post office here in West Lane. An argument blew up, and it said that when Mr. Dunn turned to leave, he was stabbed in the back, just once. But his injury was so appalling and he lost so much blood that despite the best efforts of people who were here at the time and the paramedics when they arrived, Mr. Dunn couldn't be saved, and he later died in hospital. Cleveland police have been unable to confirm reports that the weapon used was a samurai sword, but they have said the community, rocked by such a vicious, brutal assault, has given officers a wide range of information.
I've been very heartened by the community response to this incident. Clearly appalled and galvanised by what has gone on, the public have come forward and offered vital information.
Despite today's developments, though, officers say they still need to speak to anyone who saw anything on Saturday. Over 50 officers have been working on the case, and they're still looking for the weapon used and, just as importantly, a motive for the death of Robert Dunn.
Ben, it must be, of course, a very distressing time for this man's family. Have we heard anything from them?
No, police say that Mr. Dunn's girlfriend, Julie, and the rest of his family are in a terrible state and just too upset to talk to the media. Although, having spoken to a number of people in the West Lane area this afternoon, I can tell you it's quite clear he was an extremely popular man and a man who lived in a close-knit community. One young man I spoke to told me that he believes he knows who's behind this attack, and he has told the police everything he knows. And this evening, police have confirmed that all 3 youths being held here at Middlesbrough Police Station are from the West Lane area.
Thanks, Ben. OK, let's move on to a bit of sport now. And the problems for England's cricketers are continuing. Whilst the off-pitch arguments about next month's World Cup in Zimbabwe continue to rage, on the pitch, the team's showing little sign of any improvement in its form. Today in Australia, England lost their latest warm-up match against Sri Lanka. Andy Richardson reports.
For a team that still doesn't know if it will be going to the World Cup in Zimbabwe, this was a suitably directionless performance from England. Sri Lanka's batsmen cashed in against some wayward bowling, while English cricket's inability to grasp the mettle over the World Cup issue was painfully reflected in their fielding. England were left needing 285 to win, but they did begin well. Marcus Trescothick was at his uncompromising best, while Nick Knight was improvising with both style and effect. But the good times just couldn't last. Knight tried one big shot too many and was caught out, while a fatal lapse in judgment from Trescothick meant he was run out for 85. His dismissal exposed a middle order short on experience and confidence. Paul Collingwood's ambitions got the better of him, and even Alex Stewart was unable to hold the innings together. He was haplessly run out as England went into freefall. Ian Blackwell has a reputation for powerful hitting. A tame prod brought about his demise, while Matthias Muralitharan was gifted his 300th one-day wicket. Which way this game was going was rarely in doubt. England lost by 31 runs. And tomorrow, the ECB will finally decide if the team are to go to Zimbabwe. Andy Richardson, 5 News.
Finally tonight, you might have caught the Prime Minister sporting a little plum number over the weekend. Of course, preparing for a possible war, meeting world leaders and running Britain can mean that you take your eye off the fashion ball. But the Whitehall press pack are pussycats compared to the poison pens of the catwalk crowd. John Gilbert has been checking out the Prime Minister's style.
Power dresser or pyjama dresser? That's what many were asking when Tony Blair met German Chancellor Gerhard Schroeder wearing what appeared at first glance to resemble a velvet burgundy romper suit. The plum-coloured trouser pullover combo leading many experts to label it Blair's biggest fashion disaster yet.
Tony Blair shouldn't be wearing terrible purple suits. They're obviously picked out by Sherry Blair. He should be wearing Savile Row tailored suits. It's a uniform. It means that he doesn't have to think about his clothes. He's got much bigger things to worry about at the moment.
Blair's early days were characterised by a touching fashion-free preppiness that spoke nothing of what was to come, but exposure to the stars began an alarming transformation. There followed the Tom Cruise white t-shirt under khaki Top Gun look, the tight 501s with big brass belt buckle, blamed by some for contributing to a decline in global denim sales, and some ill-judged sports fashion decisions that may have had Nike quaking in their Air Jordans. But despite being occasionally upstaged in the anti-fashion stakes by other world leaders, not to mention his own wife, Blair does seem determined to persist in his Beckham-esque quest to push the boundaries of casual attire. Perhaps we should just be grateful it wasn't a sarong. John Gilbert, 5 News.
Not too bad. I think that's it for now. In our programme tonight at 7:30, we'll be asking, are we tough enough on people who view child porn on the internet? You can text us on 800 or call our voicemail 09002 555 555. In a moment, we've got the weather. I'm going to be back with the headlines in just a couple of minutes at 6. Until then, from me and all the team, bye-bye.
5 Weather, sponsored by Vinos.
Hello, it's been a cloudy day for most of us, and there are some strong winds and heavy showers on their way up in Scotland, but there is also some good news. Temperatures are getting a lot milder. Now, if we take a look at the satellite picture, you can see the whole of the UK is in fact covered in cloud, but that is working its way over the southwest and the south, providing some clearer skies down there. Now, those heavier areas of cloud are in fact going to translate into rain, and you can see here some quite heavy rain up there in Scotland, working its way throughout the western coast and down into the southwest. Should be a clearer day though over in the southeast, and again tomorrow a drier day there too. A closer look at tonight, we can see that rain along the western coast, temperatures reaching a high of 10 degrees, so hitting double figures, which is pretty mild for this time of year. Drier over in the southeast though, and moving through tonight into tomorrow, we can see temperatures reaching a high of 12 degrees. A lot of rain there along the west coast, even some wintry sunshine over in East Anglia, but they deserve it after a lot of rain last week. That's it from me. Until later, have a good afternoon.
5 Weather, sponsored by Vinos.
It's almost 7 o'clock. I'm Kirsty Young. Police have visited the home of rock star Pete Townsend, who has admitted looking at child pornography websites. Townsend has denied being a paedophile and says that he only accessed the sites as research for a book he's writing. He's the most high-profile name to emerge from Operation Oar, which was set up after UK police received a list of subscribers to a child porn website from the FBI. That was back in 2001. Well, on 5 News tonight at 7:30, we'll be asking, are we tough enough on people who view child porn on the internet? You can text us with your thoughts on 800-88. Text the word 5 and then the rest of your message, or you could leave a voicemail on 09002 555 555, or you could email us. And please do give your name and where you're contacting us from. Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, and weapons inspectors will find them, the Prime Minister insisted today. Speaking at his monthly press briefing, Mr. Blair stressed the importance of disarming Saddam Hussein.
Is that we wake up one day and we find either that one of these dictatorial states has used weapons of mass destruction, and Iraq has done so in the past, and we get sucked into a conflict with all the devastation that would cause, or alternatively, these weapons, which are being traded right round the world at the moment, fall into hands of these terrorist groups, these fanatics who will stop at absolutely nothing to cause death and destruction on a mass scale.
The Queen is tonight recovering in hospital following an operation on her knee. The 45-minute procedure removed torn cartilage and was described by the palace as a great success. She's expected to be fully active again within weeks. The injury occurred on a private visit to Newmarket before Christmas. Police investigating the discovery of the deadly toxin ricin in a North London flat have arrested 5 men and a woman in Dorset. Meanwhile, 4 men appeared at Bow Street magistrates in London accused of offences under the Chemical Weapons and Terrorism Act. Detectives investigating the fatal stabbing of a man in Middlesbrough have arrested 3 men. 31-year-old Robert Dunn was stabbed to death on a busy street this weekend. Let's take a look at tonight's weather then. Heavy rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland, dry in the southeast. Top temperature around about 9 degrees. That's all for now. More news in half an hour.